Welcome in the latest episode of the Five on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Make sure to check out 5reasonsports.com. Spell it out, F-I-V-E, reasonsports.com. There you can get all of the latest South Florida sports content for free. Also, all of our podcasts. That includes not just 5 on the Floor, but 5 Rings, Canes, Light Skin Opinions, Ballscast, Shula Ball podcast, 3 Yards Per Carry, Fantasy on 5, and more. And our YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe. We're up to 2,900 subscribers there. Get us to 3,000. It doesn't cost you anything. We've got a bunch of new shows that are going up there, including a soccer show, 90 Minutes Strong, which just started, and Loaded Bases, a baseball show, which may actually start before the baseball season ever does. I want to tell you about one of the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We've got a lot of them here on our network, but one of them is You Break It Wheel Fix. It's a wheel repair and remanufacturing company. They do powder coating for custom color changes on wheels. If you're tired of your wheels, give your car a new and refreshed look by powder coating them a new color. Yes, you can do the Vice colors, and they're coming out with Dolphin colors too. Are your wheels faded and scratched? Renew them with their in-house wheel refinishing. That's YouBreakItWheelFix.com. It's not W-E-L-L. It's W-H-E-E-L. I should be spelling that out for people. You can also repair damaged wheels that are curbed, bent, or cracked. They've got 15 years of experience. Mark runs this company right there in North Miami. He's a huge Miami sports fan. The code for 10% off 4 wheels is 5 Reasons Wheels. That's 5 Reasons Wheels. The phone number, 305-748-0112. That's 305-748-0112. Or YouBreakWheelFix.com. And now, today's episode.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, a.k.a. Alf954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. I got Alex Toledo. We've got a bunch of topics we're kind of lining up because we're expecting the NBA to come back this week. Looks like the players have gotten over a lot of their concerns, or at least the majority of them want to play. That was Brian Windhorst's report today, and we're expecting maybe in the next 48 hours that there will be an announcement that the players are engaged in this. So definitely check out those episodes that we're going to be putting out here over the next week. Also, we're expecting the schedule in 3 or 4 days. And there's an episode we want to do revisiting the big trade that the Heat made earlier this season, right before the break. And as we know, it had kind of mixed results there with Justice Winslow not playing for Memphis, but Andre Iguodala taking some time to fit in with the Heat while Jay Crowder was able to fit in pretty well. But what we're going to do today, Alex and I are going to go back and check out the 2019 draft. Why? Because the 1-year anniversary is June 20th, which also happens to be like the day in Miami Heat history. The Heat have won as many championships on the date of June 20th as the New York Knicks have won in their 74-year history. They've won 2 titles on that date, and they also drafted Tyler Herro last year. And if you remember, and a lot of you probably want to forget this, it was not a popular pick. As soon as the pick came out, I did a poll, had like 5,000 votes on 5 Reasons Sports, and it was basically 75-25 hating the pick. Riley is washed. Who is this white dude? He's Kyle Korver. He's Nick Stauskas. I think that was a popular one. He'll never even be J.J. Redick. And then all of a sudden, as the season progressed and he showed big balls, hitting the shot against Philadelphia, won over Heat fans with his personality, all of a sudden it flipped totally the other direction. So, Alex, you and I are going to go back through the 2019 draft and look at who was picked ahead of Tyler, but also who was picked behind Tyler. And quite frankly, did the Heat overdraft him? Did they draft him in the right spot? Or did they get lucky and take him later than he should have gone? So you ready? We're going to go through this list. Zion. I think the Pelicans made the right pick, right?
Yeah. Something tells me they wouldn't, change their pick if there was a redraft.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, Zion missed a bunch of the season, but, I mean, he averaged 24 games, 7 rebounds,
I was
couple
just about
assists.
to say, did you know he averaged 24 already? I didn't even realize how productive he was in the little time he did play.
And shot 59% from the field and 46% from 3. Mm-hmm. Not on high volume, but still. And, just playing those 19 games, and, he looked dominant at times, and he hasn't really developed all that much of it yet. It's just with him, the only question is, can he stay healthy? But he's going to be the best player in this draft. We knew that. He was a player it was worth tanking for. I trust David Griffin to put players around him. I think whether Drew Holiday is there or not, they'll get an asset for him. And, they've got pretty good young core around him to build. So that worked out pretty well. John Morant, Memphis, likely rookie of the year. Mm-hmm. Some of his numbers stuck out to me, man. Shot 49% as a point guard, as a rookie. That's hard to do.
It's also be a really good facilitator right off the bat.
7 assists, 3.5 rebounds, 77% from the line, 49%, like I mentioned, 37% from three. And the biggest thing is he had Memphis in a playoff spot. There was nobody. We can talk about OKC and what the predictions were for OKC, and nobody thought they were going to make the playoffs either. It was like less than 1%. But Memphis was lower.
Definitely.
And they're as of right now, the NBA is trying to get them out of it by this play-in tournament, but they're in a playoff spot. So if you redraft this thing, Zion 1, Ja 2, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Those are the guys I think we could easily say, that's the top tier of this draft for sure. Just above the rest by a good amount.
All right, so let's look at number 3, and this is where things get complicated. We've talked a lot on the podcasts over time about how it matters sometimes who drafts you. Mm-hmm. And that certain players go certain places and they're not as productive as they would be if they went to a better program. Well, RJ Barrett was considered to be the second best player on Duke last year. It was not a surprise. He was picked in the top 3.
Was supposed to go number 1 before Zion had that year in Duke. He
exactly.
Was the number 1 prospect.
RJ was the number 1 prospect. He goes to New York. We know it's a bleep show. He shot 40% from the field, 32% from 3, averaged 14, 5, and 3. So, the counting numbers were fine. What do you think? I watched him a bunch this year, and I don't really know what his position is. Am I missing it? I feel like I don't know if they're capable of figuring it out in New York.
I don't think that's a problem. I think he's an obvious wing, a 2 who you can play at 3 for stretches of the game if you want to go like a 2-guard lineup alongside. I think that's pretty much the role he's going to be. He's going to be the scorer, maybe like the 3rd playmaker. I just think that situation, not only because of the Knicks being such a trash organization in general, but the roster, right? Like there's some sense for why we know all the jokes about them signing 1 million power forwards or whatever, but at least they signed those guys to short contracts so they could have free agency and have cap space to do nothing again in free agency in a couple of years. But that roster, the fit with RJ Barrett is just horrible. His best player on the Knicks is Julius Randle, who is basically power forward RJ Barrett.
Right.
It's just like they have no playmakers to set him up. They had, there's no really like, who's their defensive anchor? The second-year forward, second-year big man Mitchell Robinson. Like, yeah, there's just holes.
And Mitchell Robinson is one of those guys that gets. He's a nice story, but he gets overrated because he's in New York. There's been so many of those guys through the years, and you're like, okay, on another team, he's a guy. He's fine, but they made him out to be this cult here. He blocks a lot of shots, but he doesn't. There's nothing else really to his game, but in New York, this all gets blown up. Let's just look at this on the surface. If you were to say right now, RJ Barrett, Tyler Herro, level playing field, okay? Not one guy goes to an elite organization and the other guy goes to a trash organization. RJ Barrett's more talented than Tyler, right? Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah. I think it's weird because talent can be a little bit vague if we're not talking about specific things, because like Herro is advanced in as far as dribbling moves and timing, right? Like you see how advanced he is when anything that has to do with the jumper, or like he knows exactly when to fake, exactly when to step back. He has all of those things that people usually learn after years in the NBA, where I feel like RJ doesn't. But RJ, just because of his build, I think his athleticism, he was always touted as the number 1 prospect. I think just because of that, I still, in my head, have him as somebody with a higher ceiling, which should make me want to take him and makes me say that he's more talented. But from what we saw this season, Herro was the guy who was more advanced.
Yeah, I think if RJ Barrett was drafted by the Heat, how much would he have played this year?
I think it would have been a similar role. Now, obviously not role as far as using him as a shooter, but minutes-wise, he would have been playing, I think, a similar amount as Herro. It just would have been an awkward role for sure.
It would have been an awkward role with Jimmy. I mean, Tyler is a better fit with Jimmy, right?
RJ as off the bench coming off of Jimmy would have been pretty cool. They probably could have kept Goran in the starting lineup if they wanted to. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
They were never going to get RJ, but I think people would definitely still say RJ has the higher ceiling just because of his ability to attack the basket. He got a little bit better as a playmaker as the season went on. Got a slightly better as a defender too. Has the physical profile of somebody who could be a really good defender as well. The guy is just a good scorer. As far as what we saw this season, he's basically just what he showed this season. Not that he's going to be this first of his career. Is very much like a DeMar DeRozan type of skill set.
Right. And if he turns out to be that'll be pretty good. All right, let's go to number 4. Drafted by the Lakers, but didn't end up there. DeAndre Hunter ended up playing his first season with a really young team in Atlanta. And I'm looking at the numbers here. Shot 41% from the field, 35% from 3, averaged 12 points, 5 rebounds. I mean, the Hawks didn't defend anybody and lost a lot. Do you like him? Do you like him there?
Yeah, for sure. I think he was another guy who Herro was definitely better than this year. And I think we're going to be saying that for most of the guys here, right? Because Herro was widely touted as a top 5 Rookie of the Year candidate, but DeAndre Hunter is the 3-and-D guy. I think he was a great pick for the Hawks. He's obviously not going to be an elite defender right away, and he wasn't. But just the fact that he put up a solid 12 points, shot decent, almost 36% from 3, and that's what he's going to be. He's going to be a 3-and-D forward who can guard other forwards, switch onto guards. I think that's somebody who's going to be good. Maybe they drafted him a little high. But I think they knew that he was going to be good. If there was a redraft, I think this one is I would really consider taking Herro over him though, just because of what I said before of how advanced Herro is and some of these offensive things, and his personality too, where the confidence just kind of propels him ahead of the competition to other people his age, basically.
Well, I think that's the other thing we got to discuss is some of these guys that go to teams that have all young players, like Atlanta, right, where their 2 best players are really young. And they're going to lose a lot. And they don't really have an established organization. One of the things is these guys get used to losing and they develop bad habits. And they also lose confidence. Whereas a guy like Tyler comes to Miami and he's given confidence by veteran guys who've succeeded.
To stack on top of his own confidence already.
To stack on top of his own confidence, where guys like Goran and Jimmy, basically validate him. I mean, his numbers with Goran this year offensively were terrific. Like that, it's totally different when they were playing separately, but those guys validated him. And so, the confidence builds upon where they were, and you also are winning in the process of it. Whereas some of these organizations you go and you're going to lose. This is always the problem with drafting. This is why the Heat never wanted to do this. You draft too many young guys at the same time. I go back to like the Clippers years and years and years ago where they had Odom and Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson and Keon Dooling, right? They had like 4 or 5 young guys in a row who were top 5 picks. Even this is a Clipper thing, but like years and years and years before that, they had Danny Manning and Kenny Norman, all these guys who were like big time college players that were there at the very same time. And they didn't get good until Ron Harper was traded there. But typically when a lot of the young guys are there at one time, they're just all developing the same bad habits. And they don't really know how to like live in the NBA, the travel, everything else that comes with it, the money. They don't have anybody to guide them. And so for guys like, that's why those organizations, they got to flip some of those young players because otherwise it doesn't work very long. Let's go to, and there's another team that typifies. This is why lottery teams stay lottery teams. Darius Garland goes 5th to Cleveland out of Vandy. Shot 40% from the field, 35% from 3. I played a lot of minutes this year, 31 minutes next to Sexton, who actually Sexton like blew up the last month of the year. Yeah, he looked like a bust, and then he blew up the last month of the year. First thing, can that backcourt work in Cleveland long term? And what did you think of Garland?
No, I don't think for the first question, I definitely don't think that backcourt can work long term. I mean, if you're just trying to depend on it as your foundation, and if you're penciled into that, right? If you're so sure that you want to play these guys as your backcourt for going forward, I don't like that at all. Maybe you could have one of them starting, one of them off the bench, or staggering them. But I just don't think having 2 small guards, and Sexton's bigger than Garland. but neither of them are great playmakers, which is a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think Sexton will get to that point. I think he's always going to be kind of like a shooting guard in a point guard's body as far as his playmaking is kind of limited. I don't think he has that. I think Garland can get there. I think he has the type of the guy just keeps the ball on a string. It's very like Kyrie-esque. It's crazy that the Cavs drafted him because super similar profile. Not necessarily physically because Kyrie's a little bigger, but you watch like young Garland versus young Kyrie, and they're almost the same type of player where they're just extremely advanced with the dribble moves. And you're like, okay, that's what's going to take this guy to the next level, because if you can just get around all types of defenses, even if you're small and bad defense, people are going to have to account for you. And so I think Garland, I might still take him in a redraft over Herro. I maybe not. I might not. But I just think that he has the ceiling of maybe a Kemba type, of maybe somebody who you can never really count on for defense, but who could just be a real problem on offense, who could just be a perennial 20 points per game scorer. I might still take Herro over him, but I do like Garland.
All right, let's go the next 5 a little bit quicker. All right. Jarrett Culver, Coby White, who ended up with the Bulls, or was with the Bulls. Jackson Hayes, drafted in Atlanta slot, but ended up in New Orleans. Hachimura with Washington, played pretty well against the Heat this year. And Cam Reddish, who I thought made some strides after looking to me like a bust early in the season. Another of those situations, another young player to Atlanta with no veterans on the team except 40-year-old Vince Carter. Any of those guys, Culver played the least, I think, out of all these guys. Played 24 minutes. No, Jackson Hayes played 17 minutes. Coby White played 26. Hachimura played 30. I mean, none of these teams were very good, right? I mean, Coby got a lot of shots up. I mean, he shot 39% from the field. Reddish shot 38% from the field. I mean, these are pretty much all bad teams. New Orleans shouldn't have been bad, but obviously with Zion being out, they were. Any of those 5 guys do you still take ahead of Tyler Herro? Culver, White, Hayes, Hachimura, Reddish. If
there is one, it's Jarrett Culver, and he's the highest one left from the group you mentioned. But I was high on him before the draft. I just think he's a guy who could really be a nice 2-way 3-and-D guard who can do some playmaking as well. I think he's not as big as Hunter, so he's a 3-and-D 2, whereas DeAndre Hunter is a 3/4 almost. But Culver, I think, is really talented, and his shooting splits weren't great, but I think he's going to be a really good defensive player for years to come and has more to his game as a pick-and-roll creator. I think that's the one guy, just because of his 2-way capabilities, I think I might take over Herro. But even then, like, Herro probably is going top 6, top 5 in this draft if I were to do a redraft. Maybe. Well,
that's what it's looking. That's why I wanted you to do this. That's what it's looking like. I mean, Jackson Hayes, it's hard to tell because, again, he didn't get –
the only other one – sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're going to say Hachimura, right?
No, I mean, I do like Rui. I think he kind of proved a lot of people wrong, including me. I didn't love him going into the draft, but he was productive. I would still take Herro just because I think Herro is already so advanced, whereas Rui has more to learn, and I don't really know what his ceiling could be. I don't really have any type of expectation for that. But the other guy is P.J. Washington. Who had a great rookie year for the
No. Don't get to him yet. We're not at him yet. So we're 6 through 10. Culver, White, Hayes. See, Coby White, to me, again, bad organization. He's nice, but it's gonna be a volume thing.
Who's he gonna learn from? Chris
Dunn?
Right.
Well, that's the problem, right? I mean, and you see some of these guys start to bust out. Do you think Cam Reddish is a long-term starter in the NBA?
He could be. If I had to make a prediction, yeah, just because I think there's so much there for him to work with. There's problems though, because a lot of the stuff is like IQ based, and it's just like if. It could really go either way with him. He's one of those all or nothing guys. I feel like I think Coby White is gonna be good. Maybe he'll be, one of those 6-man point guards who comes in and brings a little bit of scoring and playmaking. Because I just don't know if he could be a starting point guard at his best. He's good though. I like him, but I just don't know how good he can be.
I am not a huge Reddish fan from what I saw earlier in the season, but I like some of the progress. But again, I think for any of these guys to get good, they probably all need to end up somewhere else, except maybe Jackson Hayes, because I think he can be a role guy on that team. When you look at Ingram's development and what happened with Zion this year, and you still have Holiday. So I mean, if Jackson Hayes is going to be your 4th or 5th option, I think he can develop into that role. Hachimura, I think a lot of it depends on, what the situation is with Beal. And does Hachimura end up becoming a primary scorer there over time? His upside is pretty significant, I think. But defensively, he's bad. And I don't, we knew that before the draft, but that pretty much played out. All right, we're getting to Tyler. We're going to get to your guy, PJ Washington, here in a second. Before we do, though, we'll tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that's macainc.net. We have a lot of great sponsors. They're all local. But for COVID, we don't have a sponsor that is more important than this one right now. It's for making America clean again, MACA. No, it's not that other thing. They do a 3-step cleaning process. They clean, they sanitize, they disinfect, they sterilize. They do it short term. They can do it long term. Why do you need to do this? Because everybody's afraid to walk in anywhere, especially if you see these spiking rates in Florida. So get your place clean, sanitized, disinfected, and sterilized so that when everybody comes into your residence or your business, they see that certificate and know that it's been cleaned by professionals, okay? You're not just hiring somebody off the street to do this. You're calling this division of Greenview. It's a division of Greenview Construction and Restoration. Again, it's macainc.net. That's macainc.net. Our guy, Christopher Tyson, again, big Dolphin fan, Heat fan. Mac has been trained with and holds certificates for bacterial, viral, fungi, and mold cleaning treatment. So they'll take care of everything with your business. Again, one more time, it's macainc.net. All right, let's get back to this now. So we're out of the top 10, and I think so far we agree the only guys that we would definitely take ahead of Tyler are Zion, Ja, probably RJ, maybe DeAndre or Darius. And then after that,
I'm a maybe on Culver still. But
you're a maybe on Culver.
Hero was better than Culver this year, for sure.
Right. And the other 4, though, Coby White, Jackson Hayes, Hachimura, and Reddish, I would take Tyler. So I think worst case, we're saying Tyler Herro is the 6th pick of this draft so far. All right, so let's get to the next one. This was the one that went totally off the board. This was a James Jones pick, which was Cameron Johnson out of UNC to Phoenix. This was originally Atlanta's pick. He is a shooter, and he did shoot 40% from 3 this year. Played 20 minutes a game. Didn't really make an impact in other ways, though.
So James Jones draft James Jones?
Pretty much. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, there are more dimensions to Tyler's game than Cameron Johnson's game, right? I mean, Tyler can create off the dribble. Cam Johnson's not doing that.
No. Cam Johnson is a straight shooter. I mean, the guy is definitely going to be a really good shooter for years to come. Like, I think there's no doubt about that. I just don't even know, like, if there was at least – he has a defensive profile like he could get there. It's just he's behind in that aspect too, which is not great because it's like, are you going to learn that in Phoenix where they're historically not good at defense? And, like, when was the last time the Suns were good at defense or were even relevant?
Has that ever happened? I don't even know. I mean, the Barkley teams were pretty good defensively, even though he wasn't. I can't. I mean, it wasn't the 7 seconds or less teams. I mean, it hasn't. Again, he's a limited player. Tyler's better. Let's move on. The one guy you want to talk about is Tyler's former college teammate, who I was impressed with when I saw him against the Heat this year. And actually, numbers-wise, he played more minutes than Tyler. He shot a better percentage from the field than Tyler. He averaged about the same amount of points per game, a little bit more on the rebounding end, which makes sense because he's a bigger player. Assists were about the same. Win shares were higher. And that's P.J. Washington in Charlotte. You like him better than Tyler still?
I might, right? Like, and again, I'm saying this as if like trying to be objective because at the end of the day, if we were to do a redraft, I just don't know if I would end up actually picking these guys over here. There's a little bit of a bias over here. I love watching him. I think he's so far ahead of what we all thought he was when he got drafted. He's so much more than just a spot-up shooter, and I think he's going to be, honestly, a perennial 20 points per game scorer, maybe higher, and just somebody fun to watch. But P.J. Washington is a two-way kind of power forward. I think he's almost like Paul Millsap, except also with a little bit of playmaking ability. Like the guy is smart, very clever on both sides of the ball, and was even like he was one of the only guys that I really liked for the Heat at that pick, as far as just like kind of fits all of the needs, because it would have made sense positionally to have him developing in the wings to then play him later as somebody who could play next to Bam, right? But he was awesome for Charlotte this year. He was probably their second or third best player behind Devontae Graham. I think for a rookie to put up, almost 46 from the field, 37 from three, I think it's awesome. I mean, he was a great defender, good as a playmaker. I think he's just a really good prospect for that value. And the two-way stuff, I'm always going to lean two-way over offensive-only guys. And not that Herro won't ever be a good defender, but I think PJ is going to be a better defender for his whole career than Herro is. So maybe. But I think that's about
I wonder who the Heat would have taken if both had been there, because the Kentucky connection, obviously.
There was some rumors that they liked him, right?
They did like him. I wonder if they had to make that call, which call they would have made. I mean, I think if you look at their roster construction, you could make the argument for Tyler.
Yeah.
Because at the time you need another shooter. You really didn't know what you had with Duncan. And so I think that they probably still lean Tyler. I think he has the personality that they wanted. But I think they would have thought long and hard about P.J. Washington. Like, if I look at the other guys that were a little bit ahead here, they wouldn't have taken Cam Johnson. Maybe Reddish. Maybe. I don't think they take Hachimura. He doesn't fit culture-wise. I don't think they take Jackson Hayes. I don't think they take Coby White. So to me, the only guy I think that was ahead who they might have taken there would have been P.J. Washington. That's the one. I'm with you right now. I think it's close. I think a lot of this is going to be determined on whether Charlotte ever gets good. P.J. Washington may not play in any meaningful games for a long time. Tyler's going to. And that's going to increase his confidence like we've talked about. It's a broken record, but I think that plays into it. All right, so then Tyler goes 13. So let's look at this the other way. Because when that pick was made, and here's the numbers on Tyler this year, 41% from the field, 39% from three. Better at home, of course. 13 points a game, 4 rebounds, a couple assists, 1 win share. And VORP, I know it's not a number we really look at, but he's pretty much flat. But obviously a contributor to a team that was a surprise number 4 seed so far in the Eastern Conference. But when he was picked, I think you were on this podcast that night, the Miami Heat beat guys all said they were never watching a basketball game again, including Nikias, including Christian. It was the worst.
Start Hawks beat.
It was the worst. Well, pretty much Johnny started Raptors beat. It was considered to be a horrible pick because of other guys who were available. Okay, so let's look at the other guys who were available and what they did. Romeo Langford made no contribution to the Celtics this year, but again, they're loaded.
Sure, they're very deep. Yeah,
they're loaded. But he only played 300 minutes the whole season. I mean, Tyler played 1,300. Okay, Sekou.
That was everybody's guy.
That was the one everybody wanted. And I will say this, in Detroit, he came on at the end of the season when the injuries happened. But the overall, and I like the upside, but the overall numbers this year, 39% from the floor, 29 from three, 20 minutes a game, 6 points a game, 3 rebounds. I mean, the overall numbers are not overwhelming. I know he played better later in the season. I get it. I can never pronounce his name, but Chuma Okeke. Okeke, sorry. I think. Did not play this season. Nickeil Alexander-Walker didn't play particularly well. Shot 33% from the field. Then you've got a couple of guys. Goga, I can't pronounce his name either. Badazzi, thank you. You're better at this than me. Then Luka Samanic. He played one game.
Here we go. Matisse
Thybulle.
That's an interesting one right there. I'm really high on him.
And he played pretty well this year, and he got some minutes. And then the next one is Brandon Clarke, who Nikias loved. And Brandon Clarke, drafted by OKC, but he ended up in Memphis. 62% from the field, 40% from three on a surprise Memphis team, averaged 12-6. Basically, he took what he did, and he had a huge win share. In fact, according to Basketball Reference, he had the highest win share of any rookie this year. Basically, he took what he did in college and just translated it 100% to the pros. When
everybody questioned what it was going to look like in the league.
Right, because everybody was like, he's already a finished product. There's no upside. There's nowhere for him to go.
And he was a center in college, and he's playing 4 in the league because he's small. I think he's like 6'8". But yeah, he's somebody who might go. I think in a lot of people's redrafts will go higher than Herro, or will be right there with him because he was.
Is he
awesome.
Is he the only one though? Is he? Because I'm with you. Probably right now he would, but is he the only one? Would Langford go higher? We haven't seen it.
No, definitely not.
Would Sekou go higher?
No, just because Herro showed so much, I think people would say they maybe still like his upside, but like I still like Sekou's upside. I was, as somebody who really wanted him on the Heat, I was glad to see him prospering in Detroit towards the end of the season. So I still would think he's going to be a good player in the league. But no, I don't. Clarke, I think, would be the only one left. And then maybe some people will make a case for Tybull. It's a preference thing because I think Tybull maybe is what Herro is on offense, Tybull is on defense. They're both. Right. He is extremely advanced. Watching him play defense is like, it's like art. It's if you just focus on him on a given defensive possession. I know I sound like a nerd right now, but my Lord, he's just everywhere. His timing is ridiculous. He knows where to have his arms. Like it's incredible.
He's got a great nickname too, Mathif, which is a great nickname for a defensive player. It's really good. So all right, so let's look at. So Grant Williams played some in Boston, but
I like him.
The other names that I heard on draft night, the only 2 that we have not mentioned were Nasir Little, and the other one was Kevin Porter, who went 30th. That a lot of Heat fans liked. He shot 44% from the field. He played 50 games, 44% from the field, 33% from 3, 23 minutes a game in Cleveland. Like I feel, and talking to people who cover that team, they think he's going to end up being their best player.
I was going to say the same thing. I think it's going to be either him or Garland, but I really think it could be either one of them. Like I think they might be the duo for the Cavs going forward.
Like better than Sexton, I think. Even though Sexton made progress, like I don't like
Sexton
like you
is
talk
the best of 3 for sure. But obviously these guys are rookies,
right? But I'm saying, but in terms of upside, and like you said, I don't know that Sexton and Garland can play together long term. So all right, so let's redraft it. So we had
one more guy who we haven't mentioned who got drafted a little bit later, 41.
Yeah,
Eric Paschal from the Warriors.
Yep, he did, but I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to make. I mean,
I just think he will go probably like 10, 11 in a redraft.
Yeah, he probably would. I mean, Carson Edwards was a guy a lot of people liked who went to Boston. He didn't play much this year. But Paschal is tough to evaluate because, they were so bad and not playing for anything this year. The other one, though, we should mention is Bol because people were pissed about that because, the Heat could have taken him instead of Okpala, of course. Did not play, very much this year, although we're hoping, can I give this away? We're getting KZ on the pod this week. That's the hope anyway. So we're going to talk to him about his progress. But there were a lot of people that wanted Bol, and Bol didn't play this year.
The level of anger, Ethan, on that night between drafting Herro over all those guys that everybody else wanted, because people were actively, like, rooting for Kevin Porter and for Sekou and for Nasir Little and these other guys. And then on top of that, having Bol and then trading him. The anger that night was honestly just the highest I've ever seen Heat Twitter, as far as I can remember right now. Because it was,
they were wrong.
We were so wrong. I think it's never going to get to that point ever again, just because they did it 2 years in a row with Bam and Herro, and I'm not taking myself out of that because I questioned both of those picks. I wasn't angry.
But people were not as angry about Bam. They questioned the Bam pick, but there wasn't an obvious choice after him. And they, I think people did want Donovan Mitchell, but he was gone. And there wasn't an obvious choice. Whereas with the Herro pick, some of these names, I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. was being talked about for, weeks as a possible Heat pick. PJ Washington was already gone, but some of the other guys, I mean, particularly, Bol was mentioned, Brandon Clarke was mentioned, Nasir Little was mentioned. So some of these guys came up, and it was okay. And Sekou, of course, that's the big one. And so there were other players there that Heat fans at least heard of. And Herro, if you go back to the projections, was supposed to be between 21 and 25. And the whole short arms thing. But if you redraft this thing, okay, we had him 6th in terms of the players who went 1 through 13, which is where he went. And we're saying Brandon Clarke ahead of him, so push him 7. Maybe Kevin Porter Jr., so push him 8.
Maybe PJ.
PJ's already ahead of him. So, PJ too. Sorry, so basically we have him 9th?
At about there, yeah.
Okay, so they didn't overdraft him.
No. That's about where we did where we had Justice and Josh when we did a redraft for that year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they keep getting value. They keep getting higher
Josh,
value.
I think, was even higher than that. If you go through some of the metrics there, Josh should have been a top 5 pick in that draft.
Probably.
And ahead of Justice, but he should have been a top 5 pick in that draft. I mean, that draft's awful, though. Take a look at that draft again. I think Jokic was the guy who's supposed to go first in that draft. Was that the Towns draft? It might have been the Towns draft, right?
No, but that's the same draft. Townsend.
It was the same draft.
In the same draft.
Same draft, yeah. So again, the end story here is that even where he is right now, even if you're concerned that he's doing too much off the court and all the rest of this stuff, Tyler Herro was a top 10 pick this year. I mean, they basically landed without tanking, which everybody wanted them to do. They landed a guy who I think would be considered a consensus top 10 pick. And then they added Kendrick Nunn, who, if you threw him into this mix, I know it's not his draft class and he's older, but if you threw him in this mix, Kendrick Nunn would be top 15.
No doubt. I mean, he's another guy who was considered a top 5 rookie of the year candidate. So, right. Yeah, for sure. I think he would be definitely around the lottery. Just the only reason that he wouldn't be higher just because of his age, of course. But
yeah, but that's it. So they did
got
good.
Duncan too, who's even more of a rookie,
right?
Just because he's younger, but
right. So I mean, this people joke about it how the Heat, talked about Derrick Jones Jr. might have been a first-round pick. Take a look at some of those drafts. Derrick Jones Jr. would have been a first-round pick. I mean, there's some players in this draft. This is a pretty good draft, actually, if you look back at it. But there's some players in this draft we haven't seen yet. But there's also some players that I don't know that are going to amount to that much. And they're going to be limited.
They legit, like, the Derrick Jones Jr. thing was almost kind of like tongue in cheek because it's like, yeah, we see that he could be a nice player. They got him out of nowhere. But Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn were absolutely playing like lottery picks, more than just first-round picks. They were playing like lottery picks. I don't think anybody can doubt that.
Well, you couldn't argue it when you were watching them play against the Knicks and playing against their actual lottery picks, and Kendrick Nunn was out playing RJ Barrett.
Exactly. They build out a young core without having to do really any of the things that these other teams are doing. The only thing that you would say, I think the criticism that would be lobbied to the Heat nationally, and this has more to do with the fact that they're just so competitive that they can't ever really get into that top 5. But without the top 5 pick, every once in a while, you don't get those elite prospects. And even without that, Bam is pretty much that. Like, Bam is as close as you get to one of those elite prospects without being one. I guess if we still don't want to consider him that. He's already going to be a perennial all-star. And like I said, they got lottery pick production right away from these other guys. They basically have a comparable young cores with these other teams that have been drafting in the lotteries for years.
It's amazing if you look at it, considering that the whole knock against Pat all these years was he didn't want to draft and he didn't draft well. And now I don't think it's just Pat. I think it's a lot of other people, and that's why they've retained people like Adam Simon. That's why Chet Kramer is still in the building, even though he's supposedly retired. But I just think when you look at this, I mean, look at the BAM. I'm looking at the BAM draft right now before we go. But right now in win shares, this is pretty remarkable. This is according to, I know people don't love this stat with Basketball Reference, but in terms of win shares, Bam Adebayo is first in his draft class. First. Bam Adebayo, Jared Allen, Jason Tatum. Now, I know people will say, and John Collins, Donovan Mitchell, people say it's a flawed stat if you have Tatum third and Mitchell fifth, but Bam is certainly a top 5 player in that draft. I don't think there's any question. And
no doubt.
And so they got him at 14. They got Herro at 13 when we think he's a top 8 or 9 player in his draft. So they did pretty good. All right, we're going to do some episodes coming up this week. Like I mentioned, we're probably going to have KZ Akpala on the podcast. We're also going to talk about the Iguodala-Winslow trade. We're going to revisit it. We're going to talk about the schedule when it comes out. Looks like we're going to have basketball. And also we'll do Floor is Yours again this upcoming Thursday night. Thanks for everybody who checked that out. 5reasonsports.com is free. And we're going to be building out this podcast too. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.